Positivity. We are live with the live preview show. It is Celtic versus the Huns. Matteo wants positivity. Stephen, he's right in there with the first comment. Stephen, you are joining me today. Are you bringing positivity? Let's get rid of these glasses.
Yeah,
get the old Clark Kent.
It feels weird. It's weird to be doing this on a Sunday at a decent time. It's not first thing in the morning, well, 11 o'clock in the morning, or some ridiculous time like 7 o'clock or something. It's weird. It's an odd feeling. Normally on a Sunday we'd get up and basically just get right into it, but there's been that kind of weird limbo between getting up.
Stephen, keep the introduction short. We need to get Melee talking.
There was this like weird period where I got up and thought like 3 o'clock feels like a week away from now, but now that I'm here, I'm absolutely up for it.
You're talking about up for it, Melee? Are you up for it, Melee? I know you're feeling a wee bit under the weather. They got the vaccine yesterday. You got inoculated. How are you feeling? A wee bit rough?
Oh, it's kicked the absolute shit out of me. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning and that's been me since. Freezing, roasting, achy, but I'm ready for this game today. I'm ready for it, boys.
The good news is, Stephen, it was actually shite patter Melly got vaccinated against, so the podcast is really going to be taken off from now on. No more of those weird, awkward, terrible puns at the end of the podcast. Look, let's just get right into it, Melly. Behind you is the world famous, let me just turn my music down a wee bit, I'm getting a wee bit too much in at the mood here. Behind you, Melly, is the world famous 20 Minute Tim's Tactics board. Run through this lineup because I'm personally disappointed that James Forrest is not featuring.
Yeah, it looks like Forrest was a hamstring, and anything to do with a hamstring is always usually a couple of weeks, so I didn't think there was much chance of him playing. And somebody said to me during the week, look, he's out for the rest of this season, so he'll struggle to make the Euros. But we've got Christie to come in, and with Ryan Christie coming in, I think it gives us a bit of flexibility. I think we'll start in the 4-4-2 diamond again. We haven't beaten Rangers yet this season, but in the last 2 games we've played better using it, and we've gone with Laxalt left back over Taylor, Kenny right back, the 2 in the centre half positions, Ian Welsh, Scott Brown in the hole there. Ahead of him we've got Christie, McGregor, Tumble the number 10, and up front we have Édouard and Elino. So you can easily go at the 4-2-3-1 with McGregor and Brown in midfield, and then ahead of that, Christie in the right, Tumble in the middle, Elino in the left, and Édouard up front. So it is flexible, but we will miss James Forrest.
Stephen, Forrest is a big miss, isn't he?
Yeah, it's on paper James Forrest. I said on the flagship that I want James Forrest to play because he's obviously a very good player, but I did have reservations about his ability to turn up in these games in the past. Melik did correct me and said he's got 2 winning goals against Rangers, but we're talking about 10, 11 years here now of basically but almost never turning up. And there was that performance where he just disappeared. He just vanished and left Frimpong out on the right himself recently. That said, though, I would never have sat here and said, well, good, James Forrest is out, because there's always that possibility. As good a player as he is, there's always that possibility he could provide something. Not only that, but tactically, in a setup sense, James Forrest and El Yunusi on the wings made an awful lot of sense. That was appealing to me in terms of just on paper lineup. The lineup there, it's unusual because Melly could be right there, but it could just as easily be the 4-2-3-1. I'm not sure yet. We'll only find out when the game kicks off. But with the lineup, there was a couple of weeks ago where we looked at a lineup and thought, I can't work that out at all. This is different. I'm not sure what it is, but it's only because it could easily be a number of things, and that can only be a good thing. It doesn't look just completely incoherent like it did back then.
Look, there's no doubt about it. John Physique Kennedy has come in, steadied the ship, a phrase that we hate to use, though he has absolutely steadied the ship. Team are playing with more confidence.
F for Physique, isn't it?
Yeah,
F for Physique. What's the rest of the spelling of it? It's EK, surely, at the end.
Physique? It's well, it's FH. It's just the physique normally spelt, but they've swapped out the P for an F. That's how his family chose to spell it. Look, don't make fun of somebody's name. I have, no joke, really pulled a muscle in my leg just adjusting my position there, and it's agony, and my leg is seizing up. So I'm just going to try and play through it. Oh my god, it's fucking agony.
I've injured myself getting in and out of cars before, so I can't talk. I'm getting to that age now. Pull my neck muscle getting in and out of a car.
I need to stretch before I do a podcast now. Unbelievable. But look, I'm being really encouraged by the performances of Celtic under John Kennedy. There is an argument to say that, the only teams have beat are Falkirk and Livingston. He's no beat anyone really towards the top of the table. But those games are kind of came at the beginning, and as time's gone on, there's definite improvement in the team. And look, regular Steve has just put in the chat that he's look, I'm excited. Stephen, I've been quietly confident for a couple of days now, But there's no doubt about it. As I sit here today, I think this is the day that we're going to beat those rotten animals. I think we're going to beat them within an inch of their lives today. I don't think we're going to beat them 4-5-6-0. 3-1. I really think we can take it to them today. And if somebody put in the chat, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Matteo. He says, if we can't beat them today, Stephen, when can we beat them?
No, you're absolutely right. There's an argument to be made that this is probably more important to them than the last game. The last game, once it gets towards the end of the season and the season they've had, if an invincible, an unbeaten league campaign is possible, if it's on the horizon, you will start to play like you could be satisfied with a draw. And I think that's what it looked like the last time. But there's no excuses for either team to let that peter out like it did in the last game as well. That was very disappointing. The way the energy and the fizz, the pizzazz, the oomph, as Lennon would probably call it, just sank out of the game, and both teams played out to a kind of lacklustre draw. I've got no such fears today. I think both teams will go for it. In terms of giving them a doing, I would worry that, not worry, but it would be nice to give them a doing, but it just seems like Rangers as a team are kind of set up that wouldn't happen. That no one really gives them a doing. They're an organised team first and foremost. So unless you see like what happened with Chelsea a couple of weeks ago, where they just fell apart and lost heavily to West Brom, then I see it being a close game, as it always is now between the two. But there's no reason that Celtic can't be confident today. I know John Kennedy got himself into a wee bit of bother during the week there, kind of speaking slightly out of turn and then clearing it up a wee bit later.
Well, I think there was a lot of willfully misinterpreting what John
yeah.
Kennedy said, especially from Rangers players and especially from Steven Gerrard. But we know Rangers are a team managed by an idiot. So he is a numbskull. This is a man who said there ain't no real lions in there, are they? Remember that? Absolute gold for Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard better be careful what he says around physique though, because we're on punch, man. He had to take his stupid wee head right off his shoulders. So there's none of that. He's not fighting a fat alcoholic like he might have been before. He's fighting a guy. He's fighting a guy in his prime. Anyway, carry on.
I remember I predicted that. Was at the start of last season.
You did.
My bold prediction was that Neil Lennon and Steven Gerrard would make physical contact that's not a handshake or a hug. Never came to it, but maybe we're going to get it today. Finally, big physique just turns and punches him into the ground like a tent peg. That'd be absolutely terrific. Screw his head off. But no, look, you don't. John Kennedy is, in a sense, right. I understood what he was saying. I immediately recoiled from it. Right. What I mean is that I recoiled when it seemed like he'd said they're the best team in the league, because they demonstrably are not. Right. That's not how it works. You don't get to say, but we all know these titles and didn't win this one, but we're still the same team. The reason the league exists is to find out who the best team is. But if his angle is that on their day, given a few different circumstances to fall away, we've got every chance of beating that team, then I agree with that. I have to agree with that. There's nothing wrong with saying that, but they're saying they're the best team in the league.
Would say that. Derek McInnes would say that about his Aberdeen team, Melly. Derek McInnes would say, of course on our day we can beat Rangers, of course on our day we can beat Celtic. It was just a misinterpretation to make headlines a lot of the time. But, I don't think John Kennedy is dismissing the fact that Rangers won the league, was he, Melly?
No, he's not. He's just trying to build confidence in his own team. Celtic played really well last week, and he's just trying to build it up again going into this game, because Celtic, while in the last two games they've been decent against Rangers, I think they can still play better against them. I think they can go up another gear, and after last week Celtic can't really go into it on a better performance. His only thing is Forrest out, but we've seen this 4-4-2 diamond sort of work against Rangers, and the way Rangers have lined up as well, they look like they're going to be a bit defensive today. They've not went full out for it, so it could be a cagey match to start off with.
It's an interesting approach, Stephen. If Rangers want to go defensive because the game gets played to completion today, so might they be looking for penalties, no replays, no nothing. This is it. In the words of Michael Jackson, announcing that tour shortly before he died, this is it. This is it. This is it.
Yeah. What a great example. Great analogy there. No, you're right. There's no sense, as I started talking about there's no sense in them setting up as if they're going to play for a draw, because that's simply not possible. They're slightly different than when we met them previously. The right back situation was a major problem for them, which is why they bent every rule going and got their right back in today. Thanks SFA Beaks or whoever was involved in that, because Balogun played at right back and had a bit of a torrid time for a period of the game. So it's different. It's different in that sense. Also, up front, they don't have either Ruth or Hadji, which surprised me. That was the only surprise I saw when I looked at the team. They looked to have Aribo on their right side of the front three rather than one of those more fancied, probably more attack-minded players. So I'm surprised at that. There's maybe the chance that he could probably drop back into midfield and make them a wee bit more solid in there. So it is a little bit more defensive than I would expect. But the other side of that is with a natural right back in there, it gives them their fullbacks back, and that's a major part of their game. So they're probably going to look to be doing that, which is why Forest is probably such a major loss today. There's less likelihood they will be able to pin those fullbacks back.
Juco James has said, I need levity to calm my nerves. Is today the day Stephen admits to using the podcast as an excuse to build a lockdown-inspired, soundproof sex dungeon?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what it's like. What Stephen doesn't know is, right, because he chose green panels, I've got a little button here, right, that says green screen, and if I click it, I can make a picture of me appear over Stephen's shoulder. Now, the viewers can see my beautiful face over yours. It looks like you've got it looks like that's a shrine to me, that room there now, Stephen. Yeah, that's what that looks like. Back to
it was always intended that way anyway. It's always a shrine to you, Jamie. I'm just glad you were able to finish it.
Thanks. Yeah, before I died. Kevin Murphy, our benches, I worry if it goes to extra time. We're talking about the game being played to completion there. Back onto the football. Barkas, Taylor, Bitton, Griffiths, Ayeti, Soro, Rogic, Montgomery and Ralston. That is like you built a substitutes bench out of what you could find in TK Maxx. Melly.
Yeah, it's really poor, isn't it? It shows the poor recruitment again from Celtic. We've let players go in January and just never replaced them. Like, Olivier Cham's not a great player and he's not going to be the answer, but he'd be an option today, and we don't really have any. With Forrest being out, there's nobody on the right hand side. We're going to need to play Christie there and just hope for the best. And Celtic haven't looked as unfit recently, but this is the toughest game they face because it all rests on this. So they're going to be a point in the game where they're going to need to make changes, and is bringing Tom Rogic or Albin Ayeti the guys that are going to come on and give you that energy you need? Probably not. So it's really only Sorrow that could do it for us.
Stephen, the substitutes.
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, I look at it and I'm immediately wondering what's happened to Mikey Johnson. Is he just injured again? Because we've got very little news of him. And don't get me wrong, I'm not doing that. Oh, Mikey Johnson is the saviour. We need to bring him back, and he'd make all the difference. But I was casting my eye across that and just thought, God, it feels like Mikey Johnson has been here for years now, for years and years, and he's still very much a peripheral figure. So I think he turns 22 very soon. Injured AF this season, but it's going to be a big time for him once he gets back fully fit. But other than that, I mean, Griffiths, Ayeti, yes, we've discussed them to death. Nothing really apart from that. Beaton, what's really he going to provide? So it's not great. The squad looks threadbare, and that's really only because of the omission or really the absence of one player. James Forrest comes back out of the squad, who hasn't been there anyway. He's only been there for 3 games, and all of a sudden we look decimated, we look depleted because of a guy who hasn't been there all season.
I am sure we were having conversations earlier on in the season about how we have options now, how we have options on the bench. and we're looking at it and we're going, we don't have options. The squad is threadbare. Where's Mikey Johnson? Where's James Forrest? Guys that have been here for ages, and we wouldn't normally be looking to pull them out of the bag to save us against Rangers. Who is Melly going to be the game changer? Let's talk a little bit about Elyounoussi. Obviously, he's turned in a star performance last week against Livingston. His goal contributions this season and his overall contributions, you pointed out, Stephen, on Twitter and on the flagship podcast recently, has been absolutely sensational. Édouard up front with him. We're not sure what formation, but Édouard will certainly be up front with him. There's still some questions over Édouard's contribution, but on paper, he's been stat padding. Maybe he's just been scoring the odd goal and not really contributing overall. Melly, Elyounoussi, he's the one that's going to make the changes or the difference for us today, isn't he?
I think so. He's the main man. He looked great last week, and he was probably one of the best players against them last time. He was the one that got the goal, and when you get that goal, you sort of relax in the next game against them because it's not chasing that goal. Remember in the first game he missed that chance, and a lot of people were on his back, but he's got the goal now, and he's looked like our best player recently. And him and Édouard are going to be vital today, not so much on the ball, but off it as well. They're going to need to try and pin back the Rangers fullbacks and try and just squeeze them back. Turnbull, the number 10 as well, that 3 against 4. and just try and stop them getting out, because when Rangers do get out, they're dangerous. And Rangers, the way they're lining up, they're probably going to have Arfield and Aribo coming inside, and maybe they'll go to a diamond as well with Kent joining Morelos up front. So Rangers are quite flexible and can match Celtic. So it could be a midfield battle today, and I think that's why the diamond suits our players, because Scott Brown in there, if you're going to play him in a 2 against all those Rangers central midfielders, he's going to get outrun, so the diamond makes sense today.
Stephen Elyounoussi.
Terrific player, absolutely terrific player. I've been long shouting about how I just don't understand the uncertainty around him. I get that people are having that debate just now about whether he's worth paying for. For me, it's an absolute no-brainer. I know people are saying, well, it could be like 8, 9, 10 million, and I think that would probably be excessive given his age, but I think he's been great. And I ran through just some of the things he'd done this season. Even if it's salvaging draws against the lesser teams, it's still been hugely important, because where would we be without these goals? Without scraping these draws against St Johnstone, Livingston would be fighting out for second probably. And then that's only just a handful of goals this season. He was great last season as well. Set up one against Lazio and so on. So I think overall, people talk about his consistency, right? But we need to talk about that in the context of this season. Who has been consistent? Nothing about Celtic has been consistent. Well, the only thing that's been consistent about Celtic is they've failed to deliver. They have been an absolute disaster this season. In terms of individual performances, absolutely no one has consistently delivered, and no one has had the platform on which to deliver consistently. So I think that's unfair to level that at him.
Look, Stephen, you make a great point, and I think one of the criticisms, the difference between Rangers and Celtic this season is that the Rangers manager, Steven Gerrard, has managed to create something that is greater than the sum of their parts. Yeah. And the Celtic managers, combined as of late, looks like that, that they've failed to do that. Whatever the opposite is, right? Whatever the opposite of that is, right? The Celtic.
Well, just look at the formation today. We've had to completely change formation because one player goes out, whereas Rangers, if one player comes out, they just replace him with somebody else, and it's pretty much, they know what their job is, they know their role. Rangers can do that. They've been lucky in a lot of ways with injuries and consistency, and Celtic just haven't had that, and all it takes is one injury like Forrest, and we're scrambling about, and look, that team that's starting today, you're probably looking at that finishing the game unless you're bringing on Rogic or Ayeti or Griffiths, and that's not ideal.
The thing is, I'm looking at that Rangers team though, Stephen, greater than the sum of the parts as they are, and I'm looking at Helander and I'm thinking, I mean, Goldson's a decent centre half, right? But he's not a world beater. But Helander for me is a weak point there. He must be looking at, these guys, as good as seasons they've had, they're looking at that Celtic front line of Elyounoussi, Turnbull, McChristie, Édouard, whatever way they're going to set up. But Celtic's front two of Édouard and Elyounoussi, they've got to cause problems with these Rangers centre halves, don't they? They can't let them have an easy day. You've got to be taking the ball, you've got to be running at Helander, because I don't think he's up to much. Goldson is a bit slow and ponderous, but if you're throwing balls into the box, he heads them away all day.
Decent in the air, yeah, of course. Helander's a good example of what we've just been talking about in terms of squad building and consistency and things like that, because you're right, none of the players, I'm not going to be one of these guys who just dismisses all the players as crap and they've been lucky, right? They've got good players, but nothing's outstanding. And Helander is a good example of just being able to come in and perform a decent role in a system, because people would probably forget that Katic has been missing all season. He would be their first choice defender, but they've not missed him because a guy can just come in and fill the role. We've just not got that, because, as Melanie says, if we've got one player missing, it forces wholesale changes, a change of system, a change of approach. Everything just goes into disarray as soon as we're missing one player. But that doesn't mean they're impenetrable, they're like impervious at the back. That's just not at all true. Goldson is okay, Helander the same. But for whatever reason, they seem to work well together. But we've got talented players there. Édouard and Elyounoussi are tremendous players. Turnbull as well. Turnbull is yet to make his mark in these games. Christie as well. There's goals in that team. So I've not got anything to fear that we can't possibly penetrate that defence. That's just ridiculous. No one has really been able to do it much this season. But Celtic are a better team than Livingston and St Johnstone and all that. So why can't we finally do that when it finally matters? Because for a change, going into this game, there's something at stake here. All we've been talking about recently is just, can we get a decent performance? Can we do this? Can we maybe go? Can we maybe get a wee bit of consistency towards now and the end of the season? We just need to keep winning games. But this matters. This actually goes towards something. This is for a trophy, or for a trophy down the line. So we absolutely need to turn up today, and there's absolutely no reason they can't. And they can't if it's true that Celtic on their day can not only compete with this Rangers team but can best them, do it today.
Yeah.
Because we've been crying out for it all season.
No Shane Duffy on the bench. Have we got any?
No, I hadn't noticed.
Have we got any news on that, Melly?
Crap, he's just crap, isn't he? Better with Beat on.
I'm not on the bench either.
The point beating about the bush.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just I thought he might have been having a few shandies midweek with someone related to the club. Melly, Odsonne Édouard, do it for Cairo, Gully says. Oh, so glad to see that dog was returned safe and well. If you don't know what we're talking about, we can't even fill you in. But if you've contributed to the GoFundMe, then I suggest you try and get your money back. Melly,
Cairo, no party.
Aye, Odsonne Édouard, Melly. This is the day.
He's the one alongside the El Yunusi what we're really looking to, aren't we? He's done it at Ibrox before. He's scored some cracking goals there, and we've maybe not seen the best of him recently against Rangers. He is better with somebody up there with him, and El Yunusi will give him that. He'll give him that work rate and somebody to bounce off. So I'm looking forward to it. And look, this is Édouard, maybe El Yunusi, Christie, Aya, last chance saloon for them, and of course Scott Brown. Yeah. So he's one that Édouard, while he's been a great player, along with a couple of other players, maybe owes us a performance today because he's not been great against Rangers this time, and last game against them was probably his best performance setting up El Yunusi. So if they can combine again, we know we can finish against Rangers, and I just want to see it one last time.
Stephen, Odsonne Édouard, it's been the talk of the week, hasn't it? Apart from El Yunusi's performances, people's focus and attention and the build up to this game has turned to Odsonne Édouard. People are saying a lot of what Melly's saying. I'm hearing a lot of that out there on the streets and the chatter on Twitter. You know, he owes us a performance. That's the chat. Do you feel Odsonne Édouard owes us a performance? Do you feel Odsonne Édouard feels like he owes us a performance?
The last one, maybe not. It's hard to say because he's probably one of these guys that is already focusing on the next move. He's already probably trying to wind down the season and get out. And I don't mean that to denigrate him. I don't mean that to do that thing where he's got a stinking attitude. I think it's probably only natural that if he's been promised he's away at the end of the season, his head's probably been turned a little bit. That doesn't mean he still can't perform. The two things aren't mutually exclusive. He can still turn up and do his job. Well, I don't think he'll necessarily think he owes the fans a performance, but he owes himself, he owes the club, he owes whatever your motivation is, turn in a decent performance anyway. Édouard, he's always going to garner more attention for this kind of thing than anyone else is because he's the main player, he's the most talented player in the squad,
he's the
golden
most
expensive
child.
Exactly, so people are going to look to him and say, well, his head's been turned, whereas other players who haven't turned in performances of anywhere near the quality of Édouard over the course of the season can probably skate on that a little bit, but it's because Édouard has this reputation as the talisman of the side that people focus on what he's doing and what he's delivering, or in this case not. So it's a final chance for him. He's not done it against Rangers for quite some time. He's performed reasonably well against Rangers in a couple of games in the past without scoring, but he hasn't scored against them for quite some time, so probably a good way to sign off his Celtic career by doing this, by putting them to the sword today.
Look, I've got a couple of questions from the viewers, so we just need to get through these as we approach kick. Well, we're not really approaching kick-off, we're actually
a lightning round.
Slick Rick wants the minute for Christie's first Rose Ed shot. Let me tell you something before you guess it. Ryan Christie's going to score within the first 15 minutes this afternoon.
Oof. Well, I was going to say 11 minutes for his first absolute roaster over the bar, so yeah. So 11 minutes for that, 13 minutes for his goal then.
Okay, 11 minutes, Melly.
Did we got a premonition in my fever dreams last night that Christian Rogic would do well today, so I can get on board that, but I think he'll balloon one over 5 minutes in.
Robert Graham asks, what does it mean if we win comfortably today, and vice versa? What does it mean if we take a doing? I think from my point of view, Melly, if we take a doing today, that just ends all conversation entirely about John Kennedy remaining in post as Celtic manager. Not that there's much chance of that happening anyway, but you know, it might be 1 in 1,000 now. If he gets pumped today, it's basically 0 in 1,000. No chance. Absolutely no chance. If he wins comfortably today, though, for me, it edges up. It edges up, not the credibility of him being next Celtic manager, but it goes some way to maybe sweetening the deal a wee bit if he were to remain in some sort of role next season.
Yeah, he's got 2 games against Rangers at Ibrox, and these are the games that we judged on because they are the big ones. He's seen in the game at Celtic Park that it was a decent performance, but again, we shot ourselves in the foot and we didn't get the result. We're going here, as Stephen said, with something to prove. We've got something here on the line. We've got a trophy. We're going through the next round of a trophy, the last trophy that's up for grabs, and we've got a lot of players that this will be the last trophy. And for John Kennedy as well, his reputation has been enhanced, but if he goes out and doesn't win big games, if he doesn't win today and he doesn't win the game at Ibrox in the league, there's no chance for him. He's still going to be branded like he's not good enough for Celtic, and that's fair. But I just want to see him do his own thing and enhance that reputation, because I think he is a good coach, and I think we have improved under him. It was so bad it was nearly impossible not to improve, and we spoke about it how many times. Just get rid of him, just get rid of Lennon, and it has to get better, because Celtic don't go out and not win in 5 games. It simply doesn't happen. So I hope Kennedy does his reputation well. The problem with him has been the scary substitutions, and looking at the bench again, he doesn't have many options. But look, all the goals we've conceded against Rangers have been from set pieces. If we can cut that out, we enhance our chances severely.
It would be so unfair, very unfair of us or anyone to blame Kennedy for the substitutions today.
Yeah.
Like, what were you making these subs for? Have you seen this? Look behind me. I've got absolutely nothing.
What's that shit? What's your shit? Look at this. I've got fucking Griffiths here. I've got fucking Griffiths here. Member of Yeti. Mind this guy. Blowing the dust off Albion Yeti. Right, come on, mate. Fucking unbelievable. Near Baton from the year 2016 or whatever. He's he's no Soro, who we've no seen. That is a really shitty bench, and Ralston's on it. Yeah, you couldn't possibly blame him for any substitutions today, Stephen. What do you think, though? What do you think a massive win does? Well, a comfortable win, as Robert says, does for his reputation.
Yeah. Well, it's not nothing, that's for sure. It's definitely something today, because the previous game, the previous Glasgow derby, I described it as simultaneously must win but also no win, because if Celtic had won that game, all the narrative, the part would have been that Rangers have already won the league, so it doesn't matter, right? But that's not the case today. This actually, as we keep saying it, this actually means something. So if Celtic go out and deliver in a game that means something, in a big game, it'll probably be the first time this season.
Yeah.
So it's not nothing. It's not to be dismissed here. I can't think of any other game in which Celtic have delivered something when it actually counted this year. Fine. They beat Lille, but they were already out at that point. That's about the best performance. There was nothing else.
You're so right. This is what this game is, isn't it? It's an opportunity to actually win a game that matters.
To start the season.
It's an opportunity to start the season. Wesley Shearer. What do we think Kennedy will need to tweak today to get the better of Gerrard in a way that Lennon struggled to, Stephen?
Well, I'd like to see, this might not be anything to do with Kennedy or even Lennon. I would like to see something from the fullbacks today. See, when I picture Celtic scoring against Rangers today, I'm picturing cutbacks and tap-ins, and it's something we've not had this season. See if we can get in behind them and get Édouard easy chances. I know this sounds like the most basic thing in the world, right? But see if we're getting the chances for Édouard to just tap the ball home instead of giving it to him 25 yards from goal and letting him dribble into trouble, letting him just bobble off shins and then suddenly there's a clearance. I'd like to see that today. I don't know whether that's Kennedy's responsibility or indeed Lennon's, or if we've just not got the fullbacks for it. But if we can get them bombing on, get in behind, much like what Édouard did in the previous game, got to the byline, cut it across, and El Yunusi just heads it home. Great goal. Simple. So things like that, just a simple way to get in behind them. We've got the players for it, so I'd like to see that.
For me, Melly, it's all about off the ball movement. A lot quicker in the transition as well under Kennedy. It just feels like, I know I've said this before in the podcast, it does feel like Kennedy's maybe pared it back. Do you remember not so long ago Neil Lennon said, I don't know if we're giving them too much information or too little information in order to perform better. Looking at what Kennedy's done, I think maybe they were getting too much. I think there was just too much getting thrown at them, too much chopping and changing, too much, upsetting, because how many times have we discussed Celtic's lineups? The lineup was changing all the time. Yeah. The formations were changing all the time. They couldn't form partnerships. Kennedy just sort of pared it all back a wee bit, and when we were talking to him, he was talking about doing the repetition, doing little drills to let players know when you're in this situation, it comes as second nature to you, and getting back to the way we used to be to win. So for me, the tweaks that Kennedy needs to make to get the best out of Rangers is, I want to see David Turnbull on the ball. If he's playing in that hole that you've got him written up, Melly, just the sort of 10 spot, If that's where he's playing, we need to get him on the ball because he's really cute. He can find a really good pass through to Ellie Nusi. He can find a really good pass to Édouard. Stephen, you're giggling. I can see that at the corner of my eye. Is it because I called David Turnbull cute?
A little bit, yeah.
Yes, you absolute child. So I think the difference is we need to get David Turnbull on the ball in meaningful positions because he's a creator.
Yeah, well, what you said last week after the Livingston game was spot on. Like, we just look passive, and since Kennedy's came in, we haven't been as passive. We look more energetic, and look, he's not built the fitness up in a couple of weeks. It's just the players sort of know their roles, and maybe has simplified things back. He's brought in Scott Bain, not the best keeper, but you know what you're sort of getting out of him. You've got Ayer and Welsh. Welsh will come in and just do the bog standard and keep it simple. John Kenny the same. So he has dialed it back a bit, but I think he's also working on what to do when we get into that final third, because there looks like there's patterns of play. It looks like the players know what their role is and where they should be, and that's what we've been crying out for. When under Neil Lennon, it looked like get the ball to the good players in these positions and let them go. But if these players aren't confident, aren't playing well, that doesn't really work out because they're going to second guess themselves and give the ball away. Whereas under Kennedy, if you're giving them clear instructions of where they should be, it seems to have worked out better, and we've seen that against Livingston last week.
Okay, we're heading towards kick-off. It's nearly prediction time. Guys, we are on TikTok. Hey, we're on TikTok. Stephen, you're laughing.
What's that?
TikTok is a new social media app where you can find us doing clips of the podcast and all that. It's called 20 Minute Tims. But on TikTok, right, there's a thing where The Rock drinks tequila without making a face. Right? Do you know how he just drinks tequila straight from the bottle? Right? So, cause it's Glasgow Derby Day and we're all having a drink, I've got a little glass of tequila here, right? I'm going to try and drink it without making a face while you think up your predictions. So here we go, right? Jesus fucking Christ, it smells revolting. Right, okay. Oh, Jesus God. Right, okay.
It's that face again.
Yeah, there's that face. Right, here we go. So, prediction time.
So The Rock's a fraud. Is that what we've proved here?
Fucking hell. Oh,
This is the best thing since Melly took snooze on the live
Listen.
live preview.
woo! Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm getting charged for this game. Right, that was enough time for you to think up a prediction. So, predictions and final thoughts, obviously.
Right, I reckon Celtic, as much as they've been better recently, and it's all very encouraging, including the defence, because the best thing I can say about this defence and Stephen Welsh is that they've been solid. Right? They've been solid, which has been seriously lacking.
Have you been on the tequila?
they've been decent recently. However, I still just don't foresee a game where we don't concede in one of these, derbies. I just, I've been kind of damaged in my confidence with that. I think we'll concede. Hopefully not from a set piece, but I think we'll probably concede. But I can see Celtic winning today. I've been fairly confident today. I'm going to go for 2-1, and I will absolutely take it.
Melly.
Well,
Final thoughts
it's
and
going
predictions.
to be a tough one, I think. I think it's going to be very tight with the amount of sort of central players. Celtic with the Diamond Rangers could easily do that as well. I think it's going to be tight. I think there's going to be one goal in it, and I think it's going to be for Celtic 1-0.
I've been confident all week. Usually in the run up to these Glasgow derbies, I do like a wee speech, don't I? I feel all proud and I want to encourage the team as if they were watching. I don't have one of those in the locker today. I'm sorry.
I was getting myself lost.
I was
sitting here getting myself all braced for that there.
I know. I really do feel that today's the day. I've felt it all week. I feel today's the day. I feel like there's a lot at stake. I feel like, I don't know, maybe psychologically this being an entirely different tournament, it might seem like a fresh start or something. We've performed well. Rangers got the better of us when we had to cobble a team together. We are the most difficult team in the league for them. And if you just want to think about it logically, if we came up against Aberdeen or Hearts, or they came up against Aberdeen or Hibs or Motherwell, you would think Aberdeen or Hibs could take something off Rangers. It's a cup day. So I think there's a lot in our favour. Wesley Shearer has said 3-1, Christie, Moy and Welsh. I'm feeling 3-1 vibes today. That's what I'm feeling. I think Christie's going to get on the score sheet. I think Édouard or Moy might get on the score sheet. Someone else said earlier on in the chat that they think Christopher Ayer might get on the score sheet. It would be a rare thing. It would be a rare thing if Christopher Ayer got on the score sheet. But my final prediction is 3-1, and that is us. We have reached kick-off time. I'm a little bit nervous. Going to have another one of these. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not going to lie, but I'm feeling quietly confident. Melly, who's on the reaction with you?
Me and Tom had any chances with Ryan, so I'm doing all I can here, folks.
Stephen, would you like to say goodbye?
Yes, I would. Enjoy the game, folks. Let's hope we can do this for once, as we've uncovered during this broadcast. The first time this season, let's do it for the first time. Let's get a win here and enjoy the game, folks.
Hail, hail, and speak to you later on.